3 years ago, everything had been different. The day the aliens first arrived, people across Earth celebrated. Finally, humanity was not alone in the universe. The first consortium ship landed in Geneva, and their representatives seemed friendly and curious about human culture. Tae-Hyun Shin remembered that day clearly. He had been a regular cargo ship captain then, running supplies between Earth's orbital stations. The aliens had been polite and professional during their first meetings. They spoke perfect English and seemed genuinely interested in trade agreements. "We represent thousands of worlds," the lead alien diplomat had said. His name was Zeth Prime, and unlike the others, he looked almost human except for his pale blue skin. "The Galactic Consortium welcomes Earth to join our peaceful alliance." But the friendship had not lasted long. Within weeks, the consortium's true nature became clear. They expected humanity to follow their rules exactly. No questions, no changes, no independence. "You must understand," Zeth Prime had explained during the 5th meeting. "The galaxy has order. Every species has its place. Some species are meant to lead. Others are meant to follow. Humans must learn their proper place." That place, as it turned out, was at the bottom. The consortium wanted Earth to provide raw materials and cheap labor. In return, they would give humanity basic technology and protection from dangerous alien species. Humans would not be allowed to explore space freely. They would not be allowed to make their own decisions about trade. They would certainly not be allowed to interfere with how other species were treated. Captain Yujin Nam had been present during the meeting when everything went wrong. She worked for Earth's intelligence services, and her job was to learn as much as possible about the aliens. What she discovered horrified her. "Captain Shin," she had said privately after that 5th meeting, "we have a problem. I've been analyzing their computer systems and I found something terrible. The consortium maintains order through fear. Any species that refuses to submit is eliminated." She had shown him files stolen from consortium databases. 12 different planets, 12 different species, all destroyed because they wanted freedom. The attacks always followed the same pattern. First came trade offers and friendship. Then came demands for submission. Finally came the planet cracker weapons. The Kepler system had a species called the Valorians, Eugen explained, pointing to images on her computer screen. They were peaceful, but they refused to accept slavery for their people. The consortium gave them the same ultimatum they just gave us: 72 hours to surrender or die. "What happened?" Tae-Hyun asked. "Look at these pictures," Eugen said, switching to a different file. The images showed nothing but broken rocks floating in space where a planet used to be. The Valorians tried to negotiate. They offered to compromise. The consortium killed them all anyway. That night, Tae-Hyun had called an emergency meeting with Earth's military leaders. The room was small and hidden deep underground. Only a few people knew it existed. "We cannot trust them," he had said simply. "The consortium is not here to be our friends. They want to control us completely, and if we refuse, they will kill us all." General Myung-Han, Earth's director of planetary defense, had nodded grimly. "Our intelligence teams have reached the same conclusion. The question is, what do we do about it?" That question had led to 3 years of secret preparation. While the world's leaders continued to meet with consortium diplomats and pretend to consider their offers, humanity's best minds worked in hidden facilities around the globe. Dr. Jamin Ko had been recruited for his expertise in alien technology. Working alongside Zeth Prime, who had secretly turned against his own people, he began to understand how consortium weapons worked. "Their planet crackers use quantum resonance," he explained to the secret committee. "They find the natural frequency of a planet's core and amplify it until the world literally shakes itself apart." "Is there a way to stop them?" General Han asked. "Maybe," Jamin said carefully. "If we could create an interference pattern, we might be able to disrupt the resonance. But we would need to know the exact frequency they plan to use, and we would need massive amounts of power." "How much power?" asked Woojin Lee, Earth's chief engineer. "More than our entire global energy grid produces in a year," Jamin admitted. "We would need to build something completely new." That conversation had started the most secret construction project in human history. While the world watched trade negotiations and diplomatic meetings, construction crews worked around the clock building massive underground facilities. To anyone watching from above, they looked like new subway systems and communication towers. In reality, they were weapon platforms and power stations. Sung Ho Park had overseen much of the construction. a former aerospace engineer. He designed systems that could be built in pieces and assembled underground without anyone noticing. The key is to make everything look normal, he explained to his teams. If anyone asks, we're building infrastructure for growing cities. Meanwhile, Colonel Jinwoo Song worked with Yejun Bei to design humanity's secret space fleet. They could not build ships in Earth's orbital shipyards because the consortium was watching. Instead, they used asteroid mining stations and deep space construction facilities that officially did not exist. We have 17 ships ready, Jinwoo reported during one of the secret meetings. They're small compared to consortium vessels, but they're fast and completely invisible to their sensors. How is that possible? General Han asked. We learned from studying their technology, Yejun explained. Consortium sensors look for certain energy signatures. Our ships use different technology entirely. To them, we'll look like empty space. The stealth technology came from an unlikely source. Na-Young Im, a computer programmer who specialized in artificial intelligence, had been working on ways to infiltrate consortium computer systems. What she discovered changed everything. Their computers are incredibly advanced, she reported, but they all use the same basic architecture. Every ship, every weapon, every communication system follows the same design patterns. What does that mean for us? Dong Ho had asked. It means that if I can create a virus that works on one consortium system, it will work on all of them. Na Young said with a smile. I can turn their own technology against them. Working with her partner Kyung-Soo Lim, she spent months creating a computer virus unlike anything ever seen before. It was designed to be transmitted through quantum communication channels, the same channels the consortium used for their own communications. Once it gets into their system, Kyung-Soo explained, it will spread to every connected device. Their weapons will malfunction. Their navigation will fail. Their own automated defenses will start attacking their own ships. But creating the virus was only half the battle. They needed a way to deliver it to the consortium fleet without being detected. So Young Choi provided the solution. Her research into quantum physics had led to a breakthrough that even the consortium did not understand. I can create a quantum entanglement link with their communication array, she explained. When they send their ultimatum to Earth, I can send our virus back along the same path. Will they be able to detect it? General Han asked. Not until it's too late, So Young said confidently. The virus will look like a normal communication acknowledgement. By the time they realize what it really is, it will already be spreading through their entire fleet. All of these preparations led to this moment. As the consortium ships hung in Earth's sky delivering their ultimatum, humanity's secret weapons were finally ready to be used. In his hidden command center, Taehyun looked at the reports coming in from around the globe. Every secret facility was reporting ready status. The stealth fleet was in position. The quantum virus was prepared for transmission. 3 years of planning and preparation had led to this single moment. Are we really going to do this? Yujin asked quietly. Attack the most powerful military force in the galaxy? We don't have a choice, Taehyun replied. We've seen what happens to species that surrender to the consortium. They become slaves forever. And we've seen what happens to species that resist. They die. So what makes us different? Taehyun looked up at the main screen, which showed the massive alien ship hovering over Seoul. We're different because we've had 3 years to prepare. We're different because we know exactly what we're fighting. And we're different because we're not just fighting for ourselves. He gestured to another screen that showed data from across the galaxy. There are other species out there. Species that the consortium has enslaved or plans to eliminate. If we can win this fight, we can free them all. The countdown continued, 60 hours remaining, but Earth was not counting down to surrender. Earth was counting down to war. 6 hours remained when Captain Dong Ho Kim walked to the main communication console. Around him, every person in the command center stopped what they were doing and watched. This moment had been planned for 3 years, but now that it was here, the weight of it felt overwhelming. Open all channels, Dong Ho said quietly to Heejin Park. I want this message to reach every ship in the consortium fleet, every listening post in the galaxy, and every species that thinks humanity can be defeated. All channels open, sir, Hyejin replied, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what was about to happen. Dong Ho took a deep breath and spoke words that would echo across the galaxy for generations to come. Consortium Fleet. This is Captain Dong Ho Kim of the United Earth Defense Force. You came to our world expecting to find a primitive species that would surrender in fear. You were wrong. You offered us slavery or death, believing we would choose slavery. You were wrong. You positioned your ships over our cities thinking you held the high ground. You were wrong about that too. You have sealed your fate. The transmission went out on all frequencies in all languages, using technology that made it impossible to block or jam. Every being in the solar system heard those words, and many beyond. As the last word left Dong Ho's lips, humanity's 3-year plan erupted into action across the entire solar system. A young Im pressed a single button on her console, and the virus she had spent years creating activated inside every consortium ship simultaneously. The effect was immediate and devastating. On Admiral Kaelvox's flagship, warning lights began flashing red as system after system reported critical failures. "What is happening?" the Admiral demanded, but his officers were too busy fighting their own malfunctioning equipment to answer. Navigation systems began showing false readings. Weapon controls locked up completely. Internal communication networks started broadcasting random noise. Most critically, the automated defense systems that protected each ship from attack turned against their own vessels. "Sir, our point defense cannons are targeting our own engines," reported the tactical officer in panic. "Override the system," Kaelvox commanded. "I can't, sir. The computer won't accept our commands." Across the fleet, similar chaos erupted on every ship. The virus had been designed to spread through quantum communication networks faster than any security system could respond. Within 30 seconds, every consortium vessel was fighting against its own technology. But the virus was only the beginning. Min Seo Quan initiated the second phase of the attack from her command center beneath Seoul. "Planetary defense grid, you are authorized to fire. All weapons, all targets, fire at will." Around the globe, structures that had looked like communication towers and office buildings suddenly revealed their true purpose. Massive railguns that had been hidden in plain sight for 3 years began firing simultaneously. The projectiles were small, no bigger than telephone poles, but they flew at 97% of light speed. When they struck consortium shields, the impact released energy equivalent to nuclear weapons. The aliens' defensive systems, already compromised by the virus, could not handle the assault. Hyunji Kang watched from the bridge of her stealth destroyer as the first railgun shots hit their targets. The consortium ship over New York shuddered as 3 projectiles punched through its shields and tore massive holes in its hull. "All stealth vessels, you are cleared to engage," she transmitted to the hidden fleet scattered throughout the solar system. "Remember, we only get one chance. Make every shot count." The stealth ships had been positioned perfectly, while the consortium focused on the planet-based attacks. 17 small vessels began their approach from different vectors. Their quantum torpedoes were designed specifically to exploit the weaknesses that Dr. Yun-Soo Yang had identified in alien ship construction. Jian Wu, you commanded the stealth ship Busan's Fury as it closed on the consortium flagship. His torpedoes targeted the ship's power cores using quantum resonance to disrupt the exotic matter that powered alien technology. "Firing quantum torpedoes," he announced calmly. "Direct hit on primary power core." The consortium flagship's lights flickered as its main power system began to fail. Admiral Kaelvox was thrown to the deck as his ship's artificial gravity fluctuated wildly. "Damage report," he shouted. "Sir, we've lost main power to decks 7 through 15. The quantum torpedoes are causing cascade failures throughout our power grid. And sir, we can't detect the ships that are attacking us. They're completely invisible to our sensors." Dae-Jung-Oh activated the quantum cannon array from his underground facility. Unlike the railguns, which fired physical projectiles, the quantum cannons fired pure energy that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. "Quantum cannon array firing," he announced. 212 weapons targeted on critical systems. The quantum energy beams were invisible to normal sensors, but their effects were immediately obvious. Consortium ships began losing shields, weapons, and engines as the multi-dimensional energy tore through their hulls like they were made of cardboard. Dr. Yun-Soo Yang activated her biological warfare systems next. The modified communication arrays began broadcasting specific frequencies designed to incapacitate the different alien species. On the ships crewed by Saurians, the sound waves caused immediate disorientation. Crew members collapsed as their nervous systems were overwhelmed. On ships crewed by crystalline beings, rapid temperature changes began causing structural fractures. Insect species crew members were disabled by electromagnetic pulses that disrupted their biological electrical systems. Biological warfare systems are working perfectly, Yunsu reported. Enemy crew efficiency has dropped by 70% across the fleet. Bo-kyung Ryu coordinated the digital assault from her cyber warfare center. Her virus had not only disabled consortium systems, it had given her access to their command networks. "I have control of their communication systems," she announced with glee. "Their ships can't talk to each other anymore. I'm also reading their tactical data. They have no idea where our attacks are coming from or how to defend against them." The consortium fleet, which had seemed invincible just minutes before, was falling apart. Ships that had destroyed entire civilizations were being torn apart by weapons they couldn't detect, fired by enemies they couldn't see, coordinated by technology they didn't understand. Admiral Kelvox tried desperately to regain control of the situation. "All ships retreat to minimum safe distance. Activate emergency protocols. Begin charging the planet crackers." But his orders could not be transmitted. The communication systems were under human control. Half his ships could not maneuver because their engines were damaged. The other half were fighting against their own automated systems. "Sir," his tactical officer reported with desperation, "the planet crackers are not responding. The humans have somehow infected our weapon systems. We cannot fire." "Then fire manually," Kelvox screamed. "We can't, sir. The virus has locked us out of all critical systems. And, sir, we're detecting multiple hull breaches on decks 3, 7, 11, and 15. Whatever these humans are using for weapons, our armor can't stop it." Captain Yejun Bei led a coordinated strike by 5 stealth ships against the consortium's heaviest warship. The massive vessel was the size of a small city, armed with weapons that could crack planets. But size meant nothing when the enemy couldn't detect the attacks coming. "All ships target the main weapon array," Yejun commanded. "If we can take out their planet cracker, they lose their biggest threat." Quantum torpedoes struck the massive ship from 5 different angles. The weapon that could have destroyed Earth exploded in a cascade of exotic energy that lit up half the solar system. On Earth's surface, people who had been told to expect death looked up to see alien ships burning in their skies. The vessels that had seemed so threatening just hours before were now falling apart, leaking atmosphere and debris as they struggled to retreat. Hyunji Kang pursued the damaged consortium flagship as it tried to escape Earth's gravity well. Her quantum torpedoes had already disabled most of its systems, but she wanted to make sure the job was finished. "This is for every species you've destroyed," she said quietly, and fired her remaining weapons. Admiral Kelvox's ship broke apart under the final assault. The admiral himself was thrown into space as his command bridge was torn open. His last sight was of the blue and green planet that had proven to be far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. Across the solar system, the pattern was repeated. 17 massive consortium warships, vessels that had never known defeat, were systematically destroyed by an enemy they had completely underestimated. The few alien ships that managed to escape did so only because humanity let them go. The message needed to spread across the galaxy. Earth was not defenseless, humans could not be enslaved, and anyone who threatened humanity would face consequences beyond imagination. In his command center, Dong-ho watched the tactical display as the last consortium ship limped away into deep space. The most powerful military force in the galaxy had been defeated in less than 10 minutes. "All stations report," he commanded. "Stealth fleet reports mission accomplished. All primary targets destroyed. Planetary defense grid reports all enemy vessels eliminated or in retreat." 48 hours remained on the countdown, and to anyone watching from space, Earth looked like it was falling apart. Massive traffic jams clogged every highway as millions of people fled the cities. Emergency broadcasts filled the airwaves. Government buildings stood empty as leaders seemed to disappear. Panic spread across the planet like wildfire. But this chaos was not real. It was the most elaborate deception in human history. Mi Young-han watched the fake panic from her real command center, buried 3 kilometers beneath the city of Busan. On her screens, she could see carefully choreographed traffic jams, paid actors pretending to riot, and news reports that were completely scripted. "Phase 2 is proceeding perfectly," reported her aide, Lieutenant Kyung-min Park. "The consortium sensors are detecting exactly what we want them to detect. Mass panic, government collapse, and total military confusion. What about the real evacuations?" Mi Young asked. "Complete. Every person within 50 kilometers of a weapon facility has been moved to safety. The civilians think they're fleeing alien attack. They have no idea they're actually being moved away from our launch sites. The deception had been planned for 3 years. While the world's leaders publicly debated surrender terms, the real preparations happened in places that officially did not exist. Every major city had been quietly built with secret underground levels. Every communication tower was actually a weapon platform. Every transportation tunnel was actually a military facility. Sungho Park stood in one such facility beneath what used to be Tokyo. The space around him was enormous, carved out of solid rock over the past 3 years. Massive machines lined the walls, their purpose hidden behind innocent-looking maintenance panels. "Final systems check complete," he reported into his headset. "Underground Launch Complex 7 is ready for operation. All railgun batteries are loaded and targeted." Similar reports came in from 16 other cities around the globe. What the aliens saw as humanity's largest population centers were actually humanity's largest weapons platforms. The consortium had made a critical mistake when they positioned their ships directly over Earth's cities. They had no idea they were positioning themselves directly over the barrels of planet-sized guns. In the hidden facility beneath London, Colonel Jin Woo Song reviewed the positions of Earth's secret space fleet. His ships had been moving into position for weeks, using flight paths that looked like routine asteroid mining. "Operations. All vessels report ready status," announced Captain Yejun Bei from the bridge of the stealth ship Incheon's Pride. "We're spread throughout the solar system. When the attack begins, we can hit them from 17 different directions at once. Remember," Jinwoo reminded all his ship captains, "stay invisible until the moment we strike. If even one ship is detected early, the entire plan fails." The stealth ships were marvels of human engineering. Each one was no bigger than a consortium shuttle, but they packed firepower that could cripple ships 100 times their size. Their quantum torpedo systems had been designed specifically to exploit weaknesses in consortium shield technology. But the ships were only part of the plan. The real secret weapon was hidden in plain sight, disguised as Earth's communication network. The young Im sat in a room filled with quantum computers, their screens displaying code that looked like abstract art. She had spent 3 years creating the perfect virus, and now it was ready for deployment. "The consortium just sent another communication," reported Kyung-Soo Lim from his station across the room. "They're demanding a response to their ultimatum." "Perfect," Na-young said with a smile. "Every time they send us a message, they open a quantum channel directly to their fleet. And every time we respond, I can send a little more of our virus through that channel." The virus was unlike anything ever created. It was not just a computer program. It was a quantum entity that could exist in multiple states at the same time. Once it entered the consortium's systems, it would spread faster than their security programs could react. "How much of the virus have you transmitted so far?" Na-young asked. "About 60%, Kyung-Soo replied. "The consortium computer systems think they're receiving normal communication protocols. They have no idea that each message contains part of a weapon designed to destroy their entire fleet." Meanwhile, in facilities around the globe, other teams prepared their own secret weapons. Min Seo-kwan stood in the control room of what appeared to be a television broadcast station. In reality, it was the command center for Earth's planetary defense grid. "All railgun platforms report ready," she announced. "We have 347 heavy weapons aimed at the consortium fleet. Each projectile will hit its target at 97% of light speed." The railguns had been built inside what looked like communication towers and skyscrapers. To the aliens watching from orbit, they appeared to be normal civilian infrastructure. The consortium sensors could detect the massive electromagnetic signatures, but the aliens assumed they were looking at Earth's primitive communication systems. Dai Jung-oh worked in an even more secret facility. His quantum cannon array was hidden beneath major cities around the world, disguised as subway systems and shopping malls. The cannons used technology that the consortium had never seen before, technology that could punch through their shields like they were made of paper. "Quantum cannon array is charged and ready," he reported. "All 212 cannons are targeted on critical points of the enemy fleet. When we fire, we'll be hitting their weapon systems, their engines, and their command centers simultaneously." Dr. Yoon-Soo Yang had her own role to play. Her knowledge of alien biology had been crucial in developing weapons that would be effective against each species in the consortium fleet. The Saurians are vulnerable to specific sound frequencies, she reported, from her analysis center. We've modified our communication arrays to broadcast those frequencies at maximum power. It won't kill them, but it will cause severe disorientation. What about the crystal beings? Asked her assistant. Rapid temperature changes cause fractures in their body structure, Yunsu explained. Our thermal weapons are designed to flash freeze sections of their ships while superheating other sections. The stress should crack their hulls. And the insect species? Electromagnetic pulse weapons. Their nervous systems can't handle strong electrical fields. We've installed EMP generators in every weapon platform. The preparations were nearly complete, but the most important part of the plan still lay ahead. Everything depended on perfect timing and complete surprise. Bo-kyung Ryu monitored the digital battlefield from her cyber warfare center. Her job was to coordinate the virus attack with the physical assault, ensuring that the consortium's defenses would fail at exactly the right moment. The virus has reached 85% deployment, she reported. Once it hits 100%, I can activate it with a single command. Every consortium ship will lose control of their systems within seconds. How long will the effect last? Mi-young asked from the main command center. The initial chaos will last about 10 minutes, Bo-kyung replied. After that, their emergency protocols will start to compensate. We'll have a 10-minute window to do as much damage as possible. 10 minutes to defeat the most powerful military force in the galaxy. It seemed impossible. But humanity had spent 3 years making the impossible possible. In orbit above Earth, Admiral Kale Vox stood on his bridge, watching the chaos on the planet below. His sensors showed millions of humans fleeing their cities, their governments collapsing, their military forces in complete disarray. The humans are breaking, he told his officers with satisfaction. Their primitive minds cannot handle the reality of their situation. When the time limit expires, they will surrender without a fight. Admiral, reported his tactical officer, we're detecting some unusual energy readings from the planet's surface. The humans appear to be using more electrical power than their population centers should require. Kale Vox barely glanced at the report. Primitive species always waste energy during crisis periods. They're probably running their communication systems at maximum power, trying to coordinate their panic response. If he had looked more carefully at the energy readings, he might have noticed that the power signatures were not random. They were precisely focused, carefully aimed, and building toward massive simultaneous discharge. If he had analyzed Earth's communication traffic more closely, he might have detected the quantum virus spreading through his fleet's computer systems. If he had studied human behavior instead of dismissing it, he might have realized that humans don't panic the way other species do. Humans plan, humans prepare, and humans never surrender when they still have options. But Admiral Kale Vox was confident in his overwhelming superiority. His fleet had destroyed 12 other species without losing a single ship. The humans would be no different. He was about to learn just how wrong he was. In command centers around Earth, final preparations were being completed. Weapon systems that had been hidden for 3 years were powering up. Stealth ships that had been positioned throughout the solar system were receiving their final orders. Computer viruses that had been infiltrating alien systems were ready for activation. The countdown showed 6 hours remaining. But humanity was not counting down to surrender. 6 months had passed since the battle that changed the galaxy forever. The massive consortium ships that once hung threateningly over Earth's cities were now floating museums in orbit, their hulls repaired and their systems converted for peaceful purposes. But the real changes were happening far beyond Earth's solar system. Ambassador Sujin-an stood before the newly formed Galactic Council, representing humanity for the first time. The council chamber was enormous, designed to accommodate hundreds of different species. Where once the consortium had ruled through fear and oppression, now representatives from across the galaxy gathered as equals. The motion passes unanimously, announced the council speaker, a being that looked like living starlight. The Galactic Freedom Charter is hereby adopted. No species shall be enslaved, no world shall be destroyed for refusing to submit, and all beings have the right to determine their own destiny. Sujin smiled as she watched species that had been enemies for centuries shake hands and sign agreements. The Valorians, who everyone thought had been extinct, had emerged from hidden colonies where they had survived the consortium's attack. The crystal beings had overthrown their oppressive leadership and now worked alongside former enemies. Even some of the Saurian Empire had joined the new alliance, led by those who had grown tired of conquest and domination. The changes had begun immediately after Earth's victory. Within days of the consortium fleet's destruction, rebellions had broken out on 100 worlds. Species that had been enslaved for generations suddenly found the courage to fight back. Inspired by humanity's example, Admiral Min Ho Cho commanded the Joint Human Liberation Fleet from his flagship, the indomitable Earth. The massive ship had been built in the 6 months since the victory, using technology shared freely between allied species. Its mission was simple: hunt down the remaining consortium loyalists and protect worlds seeking independence. "Admiral, we're receiving a distress signal from the Centauri sector," reported his communications officer. "A species called the Nexari is being attacked by consortium remnants. They're requesting immediate assistance. Set course for Centauri," Minho ordered, "and signal the fleet. It's time to show the galaxy that humanity doesn't just fight for itself." The Human Liberation Fleet consisted of ships from dozens of different species, all working together under human leadership. It was the first truly integrated military force in galactic history, and it was incredibly effective. As the fleet jumped to hyperspace, Minho reflected on how much had changed. Before the war, each species had fought alone, conquered alone, and died alone. Now they fought together, and they were stronger for it. On the former consortium capital world of Dominion Prime, Dr. Yunsu Yang walked through halls that had once held slave markets and execution chambers. Now they were filled with medical centers and research facilities. The interspecies medical exchange that she had founded was saving lives across the galaxy. "Dr. Yang," called out her assistant, a Valorian named Kethmar, "the treatment for crystal being radiation sickness is working perfectly. We've saved over 10,000 lives in the past month alone." "Good," Yunsu replied, checking her medical data pad. "What about the new organ regeneration technique we developed with the aquatic species?" "Even better. We can now regrow limbs for any carbon-based life form. The technology is being shared with medical facilities on 300 worlds. The medical advances were revolutionary, but they were just part of a larger transformation. For the first time in galactic history, scientific knowledge was being shared freely between species, instead of being hoarded for military advantage." Professor Haiwan Young stood before a class of students unlike any that had ever existed. Her classroom at the Galactic Academy contained beings from 50 different worlds, all learning together about concepts that the consortium had tried to suppress. "Today we're going to discuss democratic governance," she announced to her diverse class. "Can anyone tell me why the right to vote is important for all sentient beings?" A young Saurian raised her hand. "Because every person should have a say in the laws that govern their life?" "Excellent. And what about individual rights? Why can't a government simply do whatever the majority wants?" This time a crystal being answered. "Because majority rule without individual rights is just another form of tyranny?" Haywan smiled. These students, raised under the consortium's rigid caste system, were quickly learning about freedom and democracy. Soon they would return to their homeworlds and teach others. The ideas that had once been uniquely human were spreading across the galaxy. But not everyone was happy with the new order. Elder Council member Ji-Hoon Baek knew that the consortium remnants were planning something. Intelligence reports suggested they were gathering their remaining forces for a final assault on Earth. "They want revenge," he explained to the emergency council meeting. "The old consortium leadership can't accept that their empire is finished. They're going to try one last time to destroy humanity and restore their control." "How many ships do they have left?" asked General Mi Young-han, who now coordinated defense for the entire alliance. "Intelligence suggests maybe 50 vessels, including some of their most powerful warships. They're being led by Admiral Vex Korth, who escaped during the original battle." 50 ships, Mi Young mused. 6 months ago that would have been terrifying. Now we have over 200 ships from 12 different species, all equipped with human technology and fighting for freedom, Ji-Hoon replied. "But that's not even our greatest advantage. What is? Our greatest advantage is that we're fighting for something bigger than ourselves. The consortium remnants are fighting to restore the past. We're fighting to build a better future." Far out on the edge of known space, Captain Yoon Seo-ha received the distress signal that would define humanity's role in the galaxy for generations to come. Her ship, the Soul's Justice, was on a routine patrol when the message arrived. "Captain," reported her communications officer, "we're receiving a weak signal from beyond the galactic rim. It's not in any language we recognize, but the mathematical structure suggests it's a cry for help." Yoon Seo studied the signal data. It was definitely artificial, definitely intelligent, and definitely desperate. Analysis suggests the signal originated from a star system about 50 light-years beyond our current exploration boundary. "There's a species out there that we've never encountered, and they're in trouble." "Orders, Captain?" asked her first officer. Yoon Seo thought about the phrase that had become humanity's unofficial motto since the Great Victory. "You have sealed your fate." Originally spoken as a warning to enemies, it had become a promise to friends. Anyone who threatened the innocent, anyone who oppressed the weak, anyone who believed that might made right, they had sealed their fate when they chose to stand against freedom. "Set course for the signal's origin," she commanded. "Maximum speed." "Captain, that will take us into completely unknown territory. We have no idea what we might encounter out there." "I know exactly what we'll encounter," Yoon Seo replied with confidence. "We'll encounter a species that needs help, and when we find them, we'll do what humans do best, which is, we'll fight for their freedom just like others fought for ours." As the Soul's Justice jumped to hyperspace, heading toward unknown dangers and new challenges, Yoon Seo reflected on how much humanity had accomplished. 6 months ago, Earth had been facing extinction. Now humans were leading the largest alliance in galactic history, spreading freedom and democracy to worlds that had never known such concepts. The consortium had made a critical error when they assumed humanity would surrender like all the species before them. They had not understood that humans were different, not because they were stronger or smarter or more technologically advanced, but because they refused to accept that oppression was the natural order of things. The galaxy was vast, and there would always be new threats, new tyrants, new empires that believed they had the right to enslave others. But now there was also something new, a growing alliance of free species who would never again allow tyranny to triumph. When those who would oppress the innocent looked up at the stars, they would see the ships of the human liberation fleet. They would remember the fate of the consortium, and they would know with absolute certainty that their victims were not alone. The phrase that had started as Earth's last transmission had become the galaxy's first promise of freedom. "You have sealed your fate," and across the stars, on worlds where beings still lived in fear and chains, the meaning was clear. Help was coming. Freedom was spreading. And anyone who stood in the way would face the combined might of every species that had ever dreamed of liberty. The age of galactic tyranny was over. The age of freedom had begun, and it had all started with one planet's refusal to surrender, one species' determination to fight, and one transmission that changed everything. The war for the galaxy's soul was won. Now came the greater challenge, building a future where no being would ever again have to choose between slavery and death. But humanity had never backed down from a challenge before, and they were not about to start now. Captain Han Taiho walked through the Global Peace Memorial in New Seoul. The morning sun shone through the glass walls, lighting up the old weapons behind their protective cases. Children pressed their faces against the displays, looking at ancient guns and tanks with wonder. "Teacher, why are these so small?" asked a young girl, pointing at a rifle from the old wars. Her teacher smiled. People back then didn't know better ways to solve problems. Han Taiho almost laughed. If only they knew the truth. He adjusted his uniform and continued walking. Today was special. Exactly 1,000 years since humanity's last war. 1,000 years of peace, they called it. The memorial halls were full of people celebrating. Families took pictures next to displays of primitive missiles and fighter jets. Everyone looked happy and relaxed. No one seemed worried about anything dangerous happening. Han Taeho's communicator buzzed softly. A message from Admiral Park Suman. "Report to Command Center immediately. Guests are coming." He knew what that meant. The guests were finally here. Han Taiho made his way through the celebrating crowds. Nobody noticed him leave. Why would they? For 1,000 years, nothing bad had happened to Earth. People had forgotten what it felt like to be afraid. The command center was hidden deep under the city. Han Taiho took several elevators and walked through long tunnels. The peaceful world above seemed very far away down here. Admiral Park Suman was waiting for him. She was a small woman with gray hair, but her eyes were sharp and focused. Behind her, dozens of officers worked at computer screens. Here, she said simply. The main screen showed 3 massive ships approaching Earth. They were bigger than anything humans had ever built, or so the aliens thought. The Vorlak Empire, Nexari Collective, and Altarian Republic, Admiral Park said. Just like we expected. Ambassador Choi Do-yun was already connected by video link. He sat in his office looking calm but serious. They want to talk, he said. The alien message came through on all frequencies. The main screen showed 3 different creatures speaking together. The first looked like a giant lizard with 4 arms. The second was covered in black metal plates. The third glowed with strange blue light. People of Earth, the lizard creature said in broken human language. I am War Leader Korthak of the Vorlak Empire. I speak for the Nexari Collective, said the metal-plated being. Its voice sounded like grinding machines. The Altarian Republic recognizes no human authority, said the glowing creature. War Leader Korthak stepped forward. Your species has grown soft. 1,000 years without war has made you weak. You have forgotten how to fight. The Nexari representative made clicking sounds. Our scans show primitive defenses, old technology, peaceful ships. The Altarian's light pulsed brighter. You will surrender all colonies to our control. You will serve us or die. Ambassador Choi listened quietly. When they finished, he asked, How long do we have to consider your offer? 72 hours, War Leader Korthak said. Then we take what we want by force. The transmission ended. For a moment, the command center was quiet. Then Admiral Park started laughing. Her laughter spread to the other officers. Soon everyone in the command center was laughing. Han Taiho smiled too. Should I tell them? Ambassador Choi asked, still connected by video. No, Admiral Park said, wiping tears from her eyes. Let them find out themselves. Han Taiho understood why they were laughing. The aliens thought humans had spent 1,000 years doing nothing. They thought peace made people weak. They were wrong. Above ground, the Millennium Peace Festival continued. When news of the alien ultimatum reached the crowd, something strange happened. Instead of panic, people started laughing and cheering. Children who had been looking at old weapons suddenly seemed excited. Adults who had been taking peaceful family photos began making calls on their communicators. Finally, Han Taiho heard someone say, I was getting bored. The aliens watching from their ships must have been confused. They expected fear and crying. Instead, humans were acting like their favorite sports team had just won a big game. At the memorial, the old weapons displays suddenly looked different. Children weren't just curious anymore. They were studying the primitive designs with knowing eyes. Daddy, a young boy asked his father, when do we get to use the real ones? His father smiled. Soon, son. Very soon. The alien ships tried to scan Earth's defenses. They found what they expected. Old satellites, simple radar systems, and small patrol craft. Nothing threatening. What they didn't see were the millions of hidden sensors watching them. What they didn't notice was how Earth's communication satellites were now pointing in their direction. What they missed were the tiny changes happening to every civilian ship in human space. Admiral Park watched the alien ships on her screens. Send the activation signal, she said quietly. Across human space, things began to change. Cargo ships suddenly looked more dangerous. Research stations started glowing with new energy. Mining operations in the asteroid belt began moving into new positions. The aliens saw some of this activity, but they thought humans were just panicking. War Leader, one of the Vorlak officers reported. The humans are moving their civilian ships. Korthak laughed, showing rows of sharp teeth. They're running away. As expected from a weak species, but Han Taiho knew better. The civilian ships weren't running away. They were moving into attack positions. In the memorial halls above, the celebration had changed. Families were still taking pictures, but now they posed next to the old weapons with proud smiles instead of curious looks. The museum guides started telling different stories. These weapons, one said to a group of children, were the beginning. We learned so much from them. What did you learn? Asked a girl. That there are always better ways to solve problems, the guide said with a mysterious smile. As the first day passed, the aliens became more confident. Their scans showed no real military preparations. No weapons charging. No battle fleets assembling. What they saw were humans going about their normal lives, just with more smiling and laughing than usual. They're not taking us seriously, the Nexari representative reported to its collective. Good, War Leader Korthak replied. It will make conquering them easier. But deep in space things were moving. Ships that had looked like peaceful explorers for decades were shedding their outer layers. Hidden weapon systems were coming online. Crews that had pretended to be civilian researchers were putting on military uniforms they had kept in storage for generations. Han Taiho returned to his ship, the Peaceful Explorer. It was docked at a civilian station, looking harmless and friendly. But as he walked through its corridors, he could feel the changes beginning. The walls hummed with new energy. The computers showed different displays than they had yesterday. His crew moved with purpose that hadn't been there before. Captain, his first officer, Lieutenant Lee Sangwoo, reported, "All systems are ready for activation." Han Taeho nodded. "Wait for the signal." 2 more days passed. The aliens grew impatient. They sent more threatening messages, but humans just kept laughing. On the final day, War Leader Korthak made one last broadcast. "Your time is up, humans. Prepare to be conquered by superior species." Admiral Park watched from her command center as the alien fleets moved toward Earth and the human colonies. "Now?" Han Taiho asked over the communication system. Admiral Park smiled that same mysterious smile she'd worn since the aliens arrived. "Now," she said. All across human space, the millennium of peace ended. But it didn't end the way the aliens expected. Ships that had looked peaceful for 1,000 years suddenly revealed their true nature. Weapons that didn't exist a moment before came online. Humans who had seemed soft and weak showed their real faces. The aliens were about to learn why humanity had been laughing. They were about to discover what humans had really been doing during their 1,000 years of peace.